Gravel chewed my feet as I ran, and the compound fences flashed like ribs in lightning. I tasted metal and fear. Maya said, "If I stop, they bury my name." Sirens were only bells, and the bells were his hands. Elias said, "Return, and be forgiven." Jonah's boots found rhythm behind me like drums in a siege. Lily called, "Please, don't make this worse." The night smelled of wet cedar and oil. A lock screamed shut somewhere, and the sound punched the sky. Ruth hissed from the shadows, left, then through the kiln yard. I swung past the orchard where prayers had been harvested. Noah watched, a statue with shaking eyes. Ava whispered from a doorway, "Are you playing chase?" My chest burned, but the fear burned cleaner. Grace had once told me the world was ugly, but honest. I wanted ugly and honest. The gravel turned to mud near the tanks, and the mud held me like a begging hand. Jonah said, "Kneel, and this ends." I said, "It ends when I breathe outside." The gate lamp flickered like a warning vein. I ran toward its pulse and did not look back. Dawn bruised the sky while I hid beneath the woodpile tarp. Maya said, "If I smell like sap, they will miss the blood." The bells slept, yet their echo kept time in my ribs. I heard carts roll, and prayers brayed through the aisles. Elias said, "Disorder arrives on the feet of the faithless." Lily's voice folded into it, careful and sweet. Jonah's patrol carved circles on gravel, always closing. Ruth slid a note under the tarp, a smeared arrow, and a single word. Ruth said, "Stream." My pulse measured the distance to water. Noah hovered nearby like a leaf that would not fall. Maya said, "If he speaks, I am done." A child coughed and giggled, then hushed. The cedar smell thickened until it felt like drowning. I crawled toward the cut in the fence and prayed to air. The tarp exhaled, and the compound inhaled. I chose the smaller breath. The stream whispered like a friend who kept dangerous secrets. I knelt and washed the gravel from my skin. Maya said, "Cold is better than chains." The water moved fast, but not as fast as rumors. Footsteps paused on the bridge, and the air held its breath. Elias said, "Water purifies, but truth burns cleaner." Jonah's weight shifted above me like a loaded door. Ruth watched from the reeds and drew a tiny circle in the mud. "Titan," Ruth said, "3 breaths, then go." I counted wrong on purpose to feel human. Lily's call floated downstream, soft as a childhood song. I gripped a root and slid beneath a bank of roots, dirt swallowing sound. Maya said, "I am not a lesson, I am a person." The current tugged at my cuffs like a pleading hand. I let it beg for me. They gathered for the morning hymn, and I could feel the sound before I heard it. Elias said, "Harmony is proof of order." The words slid over the yard like oil and found every crack. I pressed against the fence and mouthed silence. Lily scanned faces, hunting the one missing note. Jonah paced the outer ring, thumb tapping the baton in time. Ruth moved through the crowd as a shadow among shadows. Noah stood near the back, fists in pockets like a man holding lightning. Ava's small voice wove bright threads through the darker cloth. Maya said, "Do not sing, do not exist." A dog barked and heads turned, and I became a fence post. Elias smiled as if the sun rose for him alone. The hymn ended on a held breath that never wanted to end. By noon the sky cleared and everything looked harmless. That was the most dangerous part. Maya said, "Pretty is how cages sell themselves." I followed a utility trench that ran toward the outer road. Ruth had marked stones with charcoal arrows that rain could not steal. Jonah's whistle cut the air, short and surgical. Elias said, "Mercy is a door I keep." Lily moved ahead of me like a memory that would not heal. Noah dropped a bolt on purpose, and the clink drew eyes away for a heartbeat. I slid into a crawl space beneath the canteen and held the earth like a friend. Maya said, "One more breath, then another." Grease smells mixed with sun-warmed dust. The road hummed with a world I had not yet earned. I promised the world I would pay. The first time I entered the hall, it smelled of bread and wood smoke. Maya said, "Maybe this is what family feels like." Elias welcomed us with arms wide and eyes shining like oil lamps. He said, "You were wandering sheep, but now you belong." The benches creaked as strangers shifted closer, touching shoulders like roots intertwining. Lily squeezed my hand and whispered, "We found home." Jonah stood at the door, stiff, scanning like a sentinel. Ruth sat 2 rows back, scribbling verses into her notebook with urgent strokes. Noah looked hollow, even while clapping with the others. Ava skipped across the aisle, her laughter melting the edges of fear. Elias said, "Here, pain becomes purpose." The words slid into my heart before I could resist. I thought belonging meant safety, but belonging was the chain I polished myself. Morning rituals began before the sun, when frost kissed the grass. Elias said, "Discipline is love carved in stone." We lined up with bare feet sinking into cold mud. Jonah paced, tapping his baton against his palm like a clock. Lily brushed my arm and said, "Endure, it proves devotion." Ruth mouthed prayers, but wrote her own words in the dirt with her shoe. Noah kept his gaze low, lips moving like he was arguing with ghosts. Ava giggled when steam rose from her breath, then caught herself and grew quiet. The hymn began, and our voices shook the mist. Maya said, "If I sing loud enough, I'll believe it." But the truth caught in my throat like thorns. The kitchen became my refuge, a place where knives cut bread instead of skin. Maya said, "I can survive if I keep my hands busy." Flour dust clung to my arms like snow. Lily leaned beside me and whispered, "If we bake well, he notices us kindly." Elias walked through, inhaling the smell as if it belonged to him. He said, "The work of your hands pleases the Lord." Jonah leaned in the doorway, silent, watching, making me feel like prey. Ruth slipped me a piece of crust with a wink. Noah scrubbed pots, staring at nothing, lost inside himself. Ava perched on the counter, swinging her legs, humming the hymn. For a moment, I almost felt safe, but safety was the lie that kept me kneeling. Night brought stories by fire, when the smoke stung and the voices softened. Elias said, "Every soul here is chosen." The words wrapped us like wool, even as they scratched. Lily rested her head on my shoulder, whispering, "We finally matter." Jonah sat apart, sharpening his blade in silence. Ruth's face flickered with firelight, her eyes scanning the crowd like a secret keeper. Noah stared into flames as if begging them to answer his prayers. Ava clapped when sparks jumped, her joy disarming for a moment. Maya said, "Maybe tomorrow I'll believe it less." But the fire crackled louder, demanding silence. The dormitory smelled of damp straw and weary breath. We lay in rows, our dreams pressed into the same silence. Maya said, "If I keep my eyes closed, I won't vanish." Lily whispered, "Think of rivers, not fences." Jonah's boots echoed outside like a metronome of fear. Elias's voice floated from the hallway, reminding us, purity is proven in rest. Ruth curled on her cot, clutching her notebook under the blanket. Noah muttered prayers that broke apart like glass. Ava snored softly, clutching her rabbit. I stared at the ceiling beams, counting cracks like they were exits. Sleep was the only place we were free. But even dreams wore chains. The rule board changed overnight, and the letters looked like fresh cuts. Elias said, "Order sharpens love." We stood in rows, while Jonah read each command. He said, "Sleep reduced, speech measured, eyes forward." Lily squeezed my fingers once, then let go. Ruth traced the old rules on her sleeve, as if to keep them alive. Noah stared through the wood as if a door might appear. Ava counted the lines, proud to reach 10, then 11, then 12. Maya said, "Numbers can strangle when they pretend to comfort." The sun tried to warm us, but the wind won. Elias smiled like a locked drawer. Jonah ended with a promise, not a threat. He said, "Mercy belongs to those who obey." The board gleamed with oil and certainty. I felt my steps become smaller to fit the lines. Work doubled, then tightened like a belt. We dug trenches that had already been dug. Jonah said, "Depth reveals devotion." The shovel bit clay, and my hands became blisters with names. Lily passed a canteen and whispered, "Drink slow, or they think you hoard." Elias walked the ridge and praised the echo of our labor. He said, "Sound proves faith." Ruth measured soil with a broken ruler and a mathematician's grief. Noah hummed a hymn to keep his breath steady. Ava carried nails in a bucket, heavy for such small wrists. Maya said, "This ground is a mirror, and it shows a tired face." The clouds crowded close and did not rain. My back learned the language of orders. It spoke in ache and silence. Punishments became lessons staged for the wind. A boy forgot a verse, and the yard forgot to breathe. Elias said, "Correction is tender." Jonah tied the post with practiced calm. He said, "Witness truth and learn." Lily looked away and then forced herself to look back, shaking. Ruth mouthed the missing verse into her sleeve. Noah stood rigid, hands locked, eyes wet but still. Ava's rabbit dangled as she hugged it too tight. Maya said, "Kindness does not need a rope." The lash cracked like a door slamming on hope. The boy counted to 10 and lost the rest. Silence spread across us like frost. We learned to fear the sound of footsteps in gravel. Ritual nights stretched until stars felt like nails hammered into the roof of the sky. Elias said, "Repetition empties you for grace." We circled the fire and repeated vows until the words lost shape. Jonah walked the ring like a tide, checking posture. Lily's voice cracked and kept going. Ruth's pen moved even here, carving notes in the margin of memory. Noah swayed slightly, as if seasick on belief. Ava slept against my side until the drum startled her awake. Maya said, "If a word returns without meaning, it is a leash." The moon hung low and watched us learn to forget ourselves. The drum found my heartbeat and tried to replace it. They took our names for a week and gave us numbers stitched in red thread. Elias said, "Numbers clean the soul of pride." I wore mine like a bruise. Jonah checked our badges at every threshold. He said, "Identity is earned daily." Lily whispered my real name in the laundry steam, and it sounded illegal. Ruth pricked her finger with the needle on purpose and fed the cloth a drop. Noah folded stacks until his wrists shook. Ava stitched crooked, then hid her badge behind her hair. Maya said, "I will keep my name in my mouth where no one can count it." The doctrine promised unity, but unity felt like erasure. The thread tightened and would not break. The secret cracked open in a whisper when Ruth slid the torn ledger under my blanket. Maya said, "Why trust paper when words already hurt?" The ink bled names of children sent away, marked as offerings. Elias told us, "They are chosen to walk into the light." But the ledger said they walked into silence. Lily traced a name with her finger and whispered, "This is mine." Jonah's boot struck outside, a warning metronome. Noah muttered, "They never came back." Ava's scribbled drawing was folded between pages, a sun without shadows. Maya said, "The truth is uglier than the lies, but ugliness is honest." The blanket became heavy with secrets, heavier than chains. At dawn, Elias gathered us in the yard and spoke of blessings. He said, "Sacrifice is a bridge to heaven." Jonah lined the chosen 3 in front of the fire pit. Lily whispered, "Not them, not today." Ava clutched my sleeve, confused, whispering, "Where are they going?" Ruth's lips pressed into a thin line as she stared at the flames. Noah bent forward, retching quietly behind his sleeve. Elias lifted his arms, smiled too wide, eyes hollow. He said, "We give them back to the light." Maya said, "No light swallows this dark." The fire hissed like it knew too much. The betrayal landed quiet as a blade. Lily's voice broke when she whispered to Elias, "She doubts you." My chest froze before his eyes turned to me. He said, "Truth revealed itself through love." Jonah's shadow stepped closer, baton already in hand. Ruth gasped, clutching her notebook like a shield. Noah shook his head in silent disbelief. Ava whispered, "Why would she say that?" Maya said, "Family does not trade blood for blessings." Not, but family did. Elias smiled, as though mercy wore Lily's face. He said, "The wound of betrayal is proof of faith." My heart did not break. It hardened. Punishment came not as pain, but as silence. Elias said, "Isolation teaches truth to bloom." They locked me in the kiln room, air thick with ash. Jonah's key scraped like iron teeth. Lily left a folded cloth on the floor, whispering, "I saved you." But salvation was betrayal painted white. Ruth slipped a carved mark on the door, promising she would return. Noah whispered through the crack, "Hold on, don't give them the end they want." Ava pressed her drawing under the door, sun smiling, childish hope. Maya said, "Walls cannot keep breath from leaving." Yet walls kept everything else. The truth shattered when I heard Jonah outside, begging Elias for silence. He said, "They'll all leave if they see your face unmasked." Elias replied, "Faith is mine to sell." The words cracked the doctrine like old plaster. Ruth whispered from shadow, "He lies even to himself." Noah's face blanched as though his bones turned to ash. Lily wept quietly, rocking as if to undo her own betrayal. Ava's small voice asked, "Why would he sell us?" Maya said, "Because we were never family, only currency." The chain on the kiln door rattled, not by his hand, but by mine. The chain bit my wrists until the links remembered kindness and snapped. Maya said, "Pain is a map, follow it out." Ruth's mark on the door guided my breath to patience. Jonah's voice drifted like iron dust. He said, "Confession by sunrise." Noah coughed twice in the yard, a signal we stole from storms. Lily wept in some nearby room, and the sound shook nails. The lantern guttered and shadows lunged like dogs. Maya said, "Run when the dark inhales." I slid the bolt with a prayer I did not respect. The corridor smelled of ash and damp rope. Ava's drawing crinkled in my pocket and felt like a tiny hand. Elias murmured a blessing to ghosts I refused to join. Ruth whispered, "Left, then ladder." My steps learned courage, the way glass learns light. The night opened its mouth, and I stepped onto its tongue. I climbed the maintenance ladder, and the night lifted me into its ribs. Maya said, "Sky, hold me." The roof hummed with rain drips and bell wires. Elias called the flock, and the bells answered like trained wolves. He said, "Kneel and be spared." Jonah's boots found the ladder rungs like a clock. Ruth slid across tar paper, dragging a plank to block pursuit. Noah tossed a crate into the courtyard to fracture attention. Lily reached the ladder, trembling, and did not climb. Ava whispered from below, "Please don't fall." The wind caught my hoodie like a sail toward the perimeter wall. Maya said, "Fear is quicksand unless you move." I ran. The roof pitched and my breath learned to fly crooked. The gate waited like a mouth sewn shut. Maya said, "Open." The keypad blinked a dead stare and asked for loyalty. Jonah closed in with breath that sounded like sirens. He said, "Kneel and keep your lungs." Ruth shoved a rusted rod under the lock plate. She said, "Leverage is a language." The plate screamed and flinched. Lily stepped from shadow with a key she should not own. Lily said, "I took it when he blessed me." Noah watched the tower and whispered counts between lightning. Ava pressed her hands to the fence and said, "It hurts to touch." Elias called my name like it belonged to him. Maya said, "It belongs to me." The gate stuttered, then gave us a single hard breath of air. The gate groaned, and the yard tried to swallow the sound. Jonah struck and the rod rang like a funeral bell. Maya said, "No." I caught his wrist and felt years of obedience snap. He moved like a storm, learning my name. Ruth lunged low, tripping his stance. Noah dragged a rolling bin into his shins, and the clang woke birds. Elias laughed, and the laugh was a coin counting itself. He said, "Rebellion feeds me." Lily screamed and pushed the gate wider with both hands. Ava crawled through, gasping at the freedom smell. Maya said, "Run, little son." Gravel spun under my feet and turned into road. The road opened like a vein, and the forest drank me. Maya said, "Do not look back." Boots crashed behind us, and the bells lost their courage. Elias shouted a blessing that sounded like a price. Jonah tore free and chased with a promise to finish me. He said, "I will teach your bones to listen." Ruth shoved a flashlight into my palm and vanished to mislead them. Noah limped but refused to stop. Lily ran at my side, eyes salt and fire. Ava clutched my sleeve and counted steps as if steps were spells. The stream we knew from whispers shone like a blade. Maya said, "Across and breathe." We hit the water and the cold cut us into living. The stream carried us into dawn, but the cold stayed in our bones. Maya said, "Freedom can freeze." Noah stumbled to shore, coughing river into mud. Ruth scanned the tree line, whispering, "They won't stop." Lily pressed Ava close, shivering, whispering, "You're safe now." Ava asked, "Safe means no bells?" Jonah's shouts faded, swallowed by forest echoes, but the fear lingered louder. Elias's blessing still burned in my ears, a ghost made of sound. Maya said, "The world outside isn't a miracle, just air we earned." The horizon cracked open, and light felt both too soft and too sharp. We built a fire with hands too numb to feel it. Maya said, "Warmth doesn't erase chains, but it helps." Ruth tore pages from her notebook to feed the flames, eyes hard. Noah whispered, "This is wrong," using words for kindling, then pushed the paper deeper. Lily brushed Ava's hair, murmuring, "We're together, that matters." Ava giggled faintly, pointing at smoke twisting like ribbons. Elias's voice haunted the crackle, promising, "The world outside eats the weak." Jonah's shadow seemed stitched to the forest edge. Maya said, "Better eaten than caged." The smoke rose, carrying silence we never had before. By midday, hunger reminded us freedom had no bread. Maya said, "Empty stomachs are still better than empty names." Ruth searched under logs for mushrooms, muttering prayers to dirt. Noah staggered with a limp, whispering, "Every step feels borrowed." Lily caught him and hissed, "Don't fall now." Ava collected wildflowers and asked, "Can flowers feed us?" Elias's phantom laugh echoed in the silence, crueler than chains. Jonah's pursuit had gone quiet, which was worse than sound. Maya said, "Silence is their best weapon." The forest felt endless, but the path beneath our feet still leaned forward. We reached an abandoned barn, its roof torn, but walls standing. Maya said, "We rest here, no prayers required." Ruth scratched symbols into the wood as if to trap hope inside. Noah collapsed into hay, gasping, "This smells freer than incense." Lily whispered, "I betrayed you once, but not again," her voice shaking. Ava climbed the ladder, laughing as dust danced like stars. Outside, the wind carried faint bells, or maybe memory. Elias's words clung to my ribs, "Family is never left behind." Maya said, "Not true. Sometimes family leaves you bleeding." I closed the door and begged the dark to keep us. Night returned with sharper teeth than before. Maya said, "The dark doesn't forgive." We huddled in the barn, every creak louder than a scream. Ruth pressed her ear to the boards, whispering, "They search still." Noah shook awake from a nightmare, muttering Elias's hymn. Lily rocked Ava, humming a different tune, broken but soft. Ava whispered, "I like this song better." Jonah's boots did not sound, but his shadow still reached us. Elias's words haunted me, "Freedom is punishment for the faithless." Maya said, "If so, let punishment keep me." The stars above cut holes in the roof, proof the sky had not abandoned us. Morning arrived like a verdict carved in light. Maya said, "We go to the road and keep going." Ruth tightened her scarf and whispered, "We tell the truth even if it costs skin." Noah nodded, eyes raw but steady. Lily said, "I will answer for what I did, but not for him." Ava squeezed my hand and asked, "Will the outside sing?" The barn sighed as if relieved to be only wood again. Distant bells tried to claim us, faint and powerless. Maya said, "Their sound is smaller out here." A crow lifted from the fence post and flew due east. The sun rose without permission slips, and the world felt ugly and honest. I chose ugly and honest. We reached the county road where tires had written a million small escapes. A truck slowed, the driver scanning our faces like headlines. Maya said, "We need help, not questions." Ruth stepped forward and said, "There are children inside those fences." Noah added, "There are ledgers too." Lily stared at the horizon and whispered, "I will testify." Ava waved, shy and brave. The driver called in a voice that trembled, "Get in." The air shifted, as if the world inhaled our names without asking who owned them. Maya said, "Outside can be kinder than loyalty." We climbed into the cab and did not look back. At the sheriff's office, the fluorescents hummed like tired bees. Maya said, "We will not whisper anymore." Ruth laid the ledger on the counter, its torn spine brave. Noah's voice shook but did not break as he recited names. Lily said, "I betrayed her, and I owe you the truth." Ava drew the compound from memory and added a big son. The deputy swallowed hard and said, "We're calling everyone." Phones rang, and the bells in my head quieted. Maya said, "This is not salvation, just a door." The door was enough. It led out. Sirens stitched the road as units rolled toward the fences that once caged breath. Maya said, "If he runs, the story still changes." Ruth answered, "We spoke. That cannot be undone." Noah stared out the window of the cruiser and murmured, "Let them see daylight where we saw walls." Lily squeezed my shoulder and said, "I will face her eyes and ask forgiveness." Ava whispered, "Will the kids get new names?" The radio crackled with coordinates and urgency. Maya said, "They will get their own names." The cruiser sped, and for the first time motion felt like mercy. That night, we slept in a shelter where doors locked from the inside. Maya said, "I still hear them chanting in my dreams." Ruth whispered, "Me too, but quieter now." Noah sat with a paper cup and said, "I want a life that does not ask for bruises." Lily braided Ava's hair and murmured, "Your name is yours." Ava smiled and asked, "Can I keep the son?" The room smelled of detergent and possibility. A nurse left us blankets that did not judge. Maya said, "The outside is not gentle, but it is real." I chose real. I chose to keep breathing.